Every story has a turning point where everything suddenly changes.
There is no way government funding is going to organizations like the Center for Bioethical Reform. That is not something the federal government is going to fund.
Canada's leader condemned us in the halls of power. What are we to do?
The Canadian elites would have us believe, as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has so often said, that to be pro-life is un-Canadian.
Talking to all different Canadians on the streets, there's actually a lot of people who are closer to our perspective than the stance that Justin Trudeau would take.
Canada protected children in the womb from Confederation. Our founding Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, said that abortion saps the lifeblood of a nation.
I think that being Canadian is defending the vulnerable members of our population. If abortion kills an innocent human being, then we should be trying to protect those members of the human family.
Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, says it is un-Canadian to oppose abortion.
Nothing could be further from the truth. For a full century, Canadians protected the rights of the preborn.
We went into the cities to confront the Canadian public with the truth about abortion.
Many Canadians believe that there should be fundamental equality among humans.
Canadians hold respecting one another and being kind to one another very important, and I think we even have a reputation for it worldwide.
I often think about just like the saying, the true north, strong and free.
And if we are against human rights violations that have happened in the past, then we should do the same thing with abortion.
Canada is currently in a very dark time, but I believe that with the contribution of CCBR, we can bring our country towards a brighter future. We're doing the Faces of Abortion tour. We have different projects where we reveal to people the truth about abortion here in Canada.
It is hard work to be out on the street every day. I think there's a lot of hardship that come with any revolution.
Recently, I had a thought that changed the way that I think about abortion. I was thinking about the discarded bodies of children that fill our nation's waste disposals and sewers. And I asked myself, who do these children look like?
And it's the human face in particular that has a unique power to make visible that invisible mystery of the person.
So just a couple days ago in Halifax, I was talking to a woman about abortion, and she said she wasn't really sure what she thought about abortion. I then talked to her about human rights, and she agreed that every human being should get human rights. And she agreed that yes, abortion was a human rights violation, but she then brought up the case of sexual assault. I agreed that this was a really difficult circumstance, and we discussed how the child was innocent in these circumstances. I pointed to the image on my sign of an aborted child, and I asked, is this ever okay, regardless of any circumstance? And she looked at the image on my sign, she looked at me, and she said, you're right, this can never be okay. And she walked away fully pro-life.
The team is amazing to work with. So it's people who share our convictions, who see the need for this work, and there's a real camaraderie that gets formed as a result.
This fight is something that does require that grit and determination because of the fact that this cultural injustice is so deeply rooted in our everyday society. It happens just about every single day that we get at least one person, if not more, that do completely change their mind on abortion.
Joining CCBR was what made me realize that I was a part of the resistance. I hadn't realized just how much people were so firmly opposed to pro-life views. To be a part of the resistance, I think, means standing up in this case for rights and truths that people are trying to ignore in our culture right now, that we are not allowing them to.
Abortion victim photography speaks to us because the photos show another human being, a personal someone. We need people to not just look at a victim of an abortion, but to truly see her, to feel her presence. If there is this other person whose face I have now seen, the face is what you cannot kill. At least the face says to us, thou shalt not kill. To kill, one must avoid seeing face. To end the killing, the human faces of the victims must be seen.
This is why we are bringing the faces of abortion victims to the Canadian public. Because there is a human connection that can only be made through the face. Their severed arms and legs may horrify us when we look at them, but their faces speak to us when we see them.
A unique challenge of doing activism here on the West Coast in Vancouver and the surrounding area is that the culture here is incredibly passive. BC is fairly well known for its laid-back, pot-smoking kind of vibe, and so often when we're encountering people on the streets, they simply just don't care about abortion. When we do activism, it's really encouraging that we're able to give people the values of equality and freedom for everybody, including the youngest in our society.
I was downtown Vancouver and I talked to a girl who said she didn't really have an opinion on abortion, but she felt that it was okay up until 9 months of pregnancy. And so I simply showed her my sign and I said, "Do you think that it's okay to kill innocent lives like these?" She said, "I didn't know that's what abortion looked like." And after further conversation about human rights and who should get them, she walked away fully pro-life.
Of the people who engage with us who support abortion in one way or another, maybe they support abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, maybe they support abortion only in a small number of circumstances. Based on over 3,500 conversations that we have tracked in the last calendar year, 25% of those people left the conversation fully against abortion.
This tour is also the launch of 2 new vehicles. A bilingual truth truck that's been on its maiden voyage from PEI through to the streets of Montreal today. And it's going to be driven regularly in Montreal, Ottawa, and through Eastern Ontario by Emile, who drove the truth truck on the new abortion caravan, and he's rejoining staff as the first staff member of our new Ottawa, Quebec initiative.
That experience of the end the killing tour was a little nerve-wracking. We got hit with a couple of tomatoes. Pretty much when the truth truck's out, like right now where we're at, you can get hundreds of views within minutes.
The second new vehicle that we're launching with this tour is our new video truck. And I was driving this today, showing abortion videos as well. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, video is worth 1,000,000.
So I know that this works. Obviously, we're going to need to do it at a much larger scale if we want to see an even greater impact.
I'm incredibly optimistic, especially because of the insurgence of both youth and new membership in the pro-life movement.
What does it mean to come face to face with a victim of abortion? How should I respond?
Nobody in our culture is more orphaned than these babies, and that is why we are here.
What does a normal life look like in a society that kills innocent children?
I stopped looking at abortion as an issue I was called to respond to, and I started looking at the victims of abortion as children to have compassion on. Abortion was no longer about a what, but about a who.
What is my responsibility toward them?
Will I make this story my own?
I'm here in Moncton, and I just talked to a girl who walked by who was like, "You know what, I'm okay with abortion, but I'm not okay with it late term." And I said, okay, late term versus earlier in the pregnancy, does the humanity change that human being? She's like, I guess not. So I asked her, I said, okay, then if it's not okay to kill someone when they're older, would it be okay to kill the same human being just at a younger age? She thought about it and she's like, no, that actually makes sense. And so I pointed to my image, which was an image of a 10-week abortion victim, and she said, yeah, no, that is never okay. So she left being completely pro-life.
To be pro-life is to be Canadian in the deepest sense, to stand with the vast majority of Canadians throughout our history who believe the same, to stand on guard for the most vulnerable, to believe that our children are the most precious resource our beautiful country has. How many Canadians know that Prime Minister John Diefenbaker fought against the forcible internship of the Japanese Canadians, championed the Bill of Rights, opposed the apartheid regime of South Africa, and defended human rights around the world? This same Diefenbaker opposed legalization of abortion and spoke for millions of Canadians in believing that to be Canadian was to stand for all human rights, born and unborn. Trudeau and those like him are not just wrong when they say that opposing abortion is un-Canadian, they are dead wrong. When dozens of men and women put boots on the ground across our nation each day, we are not simply trying to change Canada. We are reminding Canadians of who they really are.
From Newfoundland to Victoria, CCBR is seeing minds changed and lives saved.
To be Canadian is to protect the vulnerable.
Be countercultural.
Be defiant.
Be a protector of the preborn.
Be a counter-revolutionary.
Be pro-life.
Our story is still unfolding. Canada is still overwhelmingly pro-choice. But little by little, the house on sand begins to shake. The foundations begin to crack. And through those cracks, new life begins to grow.